All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. I'm gonna have to face this way. I'm so sorry. Keshi kotalagiti genawe hoshri spu leshina hoquiligen estempha haiato debikoike hodana quedean dakia que awan chatle homatha shinachi fair licensi dub carly spu leshina for Indigenous Affairs awan mosana and I am from Shiwina. Okay, hold on. Hello, everyone. My name is Cherie Spoon. I am 23 years old as of today. My clans are Turkey and Chalaba Frog. My parents are Farah Licenci and Carlos Spoon. I am from the Pueblo of Zuni here in New Mexico, and I am the coordinator for the Office of Indigenous Affairs. Thank you for joining us today for this wonderful event in celebration of Women's History Month. This afternoon, I have the honor of introducing my sister and role model, Wilhelmina Yazzie. She is from the Navajo Nation and was recognized as USA Today's Women of the Year for her dedication to advocating for educational equity. Her work has shaped opportunities for Native American students, English language learners, low-income students, and children with disabilities. Today, she will share her journey, offering an important opportunity to learn about education policy, advocacy, and the impact of the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit. And without further ado, thank you. Join me in welcoming Wilhelmina Yazzie.
Yeah, Shadeja, thank you for that introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to send my apologies for not being there in person. Some plans didn't fall through as we had was planning on. However, I just want to say, thank you for joining me through virtual and also those that are online. I'll go ahead and start with my introduction. Sheya Wilhelmina Yazzie Yinishia Ado Ziladish Chini Nishno Kia Ani Bashishin Torich ini Dashachero Ashihe Dashanada. Setrat Trok all day I see Shiaho Ado Arit Nasha Areya Nat Nijoj Nash Nishto Korikishte. Tra ish alchen Aro Bill Inash Inige Naslane the Ned La Kotanle. Akut ai hin kje da desi. Aro shamande ani yazi wol yende aro shamasan do che Betty and Tom yazi wol yende. Atset hat hog all day. Akoidit ahya ari zahaso kagi. So good afternoon, relatives. I am very honored to be here. Invitation from my sister Charisse for Women's History Month. And I wanted to go ahead and do a presentation on the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit. Some of you may be familiar with it. Some of you may not be so familiar with it. But I wanted to kind of give you my personal story from the beginning, and then how it led up to the suit, and then how the suit came about through the litigation, and then also where we're at right now and at the present time. So I will go ahead and share my screen. Okay, let's see. Charisse, my PowerPoint is not popping up like we had done before.
Oh no.
Okay, let's see here.
I press. Actually, try it again.
Okay, so share screen.
There you go.
Okay, there he goes. Oh, sorry, those are my 3 beautiful children. Okay, are you guys able to see that? Okay, awesome. Okay. So New Mexico Center on Law and Poverty are my legal team that helped me through this whole education lawsuit from the beginning. I, as a parent, on behalf of my children, and also there were other parents as well, and school districts that came together and sued the state public education department, the state of New Mexico governor, So today I wanted to go ahead and touch base on a couple of things. The first is my personal story on my journey through this whole education lawsuit. And then we'll go ahead and touch up on the state's obligation to our students of New Mexico. And then from there, we'll go ahead and go into the judge's findings, and then case updates from 2018 until present time. And then also implementation through grassroots efforts and legislative advocacy, which is happening right now in the legislative session going on. And at the end, we'll go ahead and do a question Q&A. Right now, I'm gonna have my sister go ahead and play this video for you. But before I do that, I wanted to go ahead and have you, this is my oldest son, Xavier, and then also one of our legal warriors, Preston, who really have fought hard for our children through the legal side of everything. So Charisse, go ahead and play the video.
Yazzie şey bu hamina Yazzie yenişe. Beşti in son ki ani başıştin. Kurit ini da şu şey ana şihe da şunale. Tat kok olde ay sinasha. Shumande en Yazzie bogende. Aro shumasan da şu şey beri en tam Yazzie bogende. Aro shastin it just in black moon yoga. Aro ta ishastin. Ahut ego ikanastan en işte. Hello, my name is Wilhelmina Yazzie, and I'm the lead plaintiff in the Yazzie versus State of New Mexico education lawsuit.
New Mexico is failing its children. That's the argument from dozens here today. It's a lawsuit against the state of New Mexico gets underway. 130 people have no bone to pick with the state over how kids are learning in New Mexico.
From the beginning, when this started, I had my doubts because I had never really heard or seen any such school suit here where parents and, school districts came together against the state for our children. We had to file a suit just to get our children to get what they need and what they're entitled to, quality education.
The suit is being called one of the most significant education lawsuits in New Mexico history. Yazzie is eager to see some things change.
And it takes several years because my son was in elementary when it started. And now he's almost done in high school. Elementary, fifth grade when it started.
When it started, that far back, okay.
Yeah.
E, B, C, D, A, F, G, H, assistant,
Age.
A, B, C, D, A, F, G.
I have 3 children. I have Xavier, I have Reese, and Camila. Camila means butterfly in Lakota. What is this one?
B,
For
banana.
banana, and Navajo is Yishkan. Yishkan.
Yarn.
She's in pre-K now and she loves school.
Mhm.
My hope for her is that she gets what we're asking for now to really be prepared when she gets older.
Oh,
This one?
banana.
And to know who she is, where she comes from, and to be proud.
Banana.
As a mom, it's very important for me that they know these values and their cultural beliefs as well, because it's part of who they are, and that's gonna guide them and help them. It's plain and simple. Our children deserve quality education. It's really their constitutional right. It's written there.
Wilhelmina Yazzie of Gallup is listed on the groundbreaking lawsuit Yazzie versus New Mexico. She's frustrated with the education her sons were not getting.
Our children deserve good quality education. My children, your children, everybody's children.
And a lot of the teachers, they really want to help their children. but it was always that they didn't have enough resources. Some went out of their ways to try to help our children on their own from their own expenses.
Our position in this case is that all students have the potential to learn. The thing that's happening here in New Mexico, though, is that they're starved of resources. They're starved of educational opportunities to succeed academically, as William has described. Putting together this case meant that we had to think about the needs of all students.
The teachers needed additional classroom supplies.
She says parents were asked to bring in old socks so teachers could use them to clean the dry eraser boards.
There weren't any culturally relevant classes.
My children would come home saying, you know, we had a substitute for a week now.
There was enough textbooks to bring home for homework.
It's a victory for many parents and educators around our state. A district court judge ruled New Mexico is not living up to its constitutional obligation.
District court judge ruled New Mexico is not providing students with a sufficient education.
A first judicial district judge declared the state's public education system a dismal failure.
I reread the order several times to really see if, if I was really reading right, that Judge Singleton had ruled in our favor. It was plain and simple there, but just rereading it, like, wow, is this really happening? Did we really win? Did we really, is it really going to happen for our children?
Mommy,
Yes.
I'm in chocolate.
Mom, let's make bread.
Mom, let's make bed.
I joined the lawsuit because our children, our Native American children, have endured so much discrimination in the education system for so long, starting back from, Removal Act and the boarding school era. I didn't have dreams of going to college or doing big things because in school, I didn't have that preparedness. However, with my mom being there as my inspiration, she always stressed the importance of education. She was an educator for quite some time, for over 30 years. She started with the Navajo Head Start program and all through secondary school. The concept for her, my children, was everybody. The whole community, all the children that she taught was like her children. And in Navajo, that's Nahat Chinaba is for our children. Mom, children, time to eat. So I'm trying to do my part as a mother, but also like the state to do their part for our children with the education system to really engage and really keep our children a priority.
Okay, so thank you for that. I just wanted to show that video. I had done that video, gosh, maybe like a year after the court ruling, when we got the court ruling. Not even a year. So my youngest daughter at that time was, it's always great to watch that because at that time we were learning our language and all of that. Now she's almost 10 years old in third grade. So again, here's just my introduction that I introduced myself earlier. I am Diné Navajo, also White Mountain Apache people tribe. I'm an enrolled member of the Navajo Nation. I'm originally from Casamara Lake, New Mexico, which is in the southeastern part of the Navajo Nation out by Crown Point area, if you guys are familiar with that area. I'm currently living and working in Gallup, which is off tribal land. I'm also a descendant of the Long Walk, my ancestors. My late mother was Annie Yazzie, who I talked about in the video, who was an educator for over 30 years. And she's one of my inspiration on really what my role was as a mother, and also what I needed to do for my children, as she did for me and my siblings growing up. My late grandmother, my maternal grandmother was Betty B. Yazzie, and my grandfather was Tom Yazzie. Again, I have 3 beautiful children, as you've seen in the video. My oldest, Xavier, and then I have Reese and Camimula, the youngest. And the person that I make my life with is of the Lakota, Oglala, Cheyenne River Sioux tribe up from Pine Ridge Reservation. I also have 3 siblings that I always like to acknowledge. My oldest is sister Vicky, my older brother Everly, and my youngest brother Mario, who have been there for me tirelessly, always supporting, just always there for me through all of this, and then always there for my children as well. Especially after when my mother passed back in 2016. It was right before 2018 when the court ruling came about. But when we first initially started this lawsuit, I had talked to my mother about it and asked, this is the talks, this is what we're planning on doing, going after the state for our children. There's other parents involved in school district and so forth. So I gave her time to think, because she's always the kind of person who wouldn't give you a straight answer. She would make you think about things before she would actually give you some type of guidance, or before she gave you an answer. That was so great about her, because it also made us learn a lot about our weaknesses, our strengths, and our, when we mess up in certain things, how to fix them, and those type of things, those values that we grew up with. Here, I have a couple of pictures, but at the time when I was talking to her about this, I remember her, just letting me know that if you decide to go through with this, if you decide to be part of this, always remember that this is not going to be about you. It's never going to be about you. This is going to be about your children and all the children. And that's who you're going to have to think about going through this. Always remember what you say, and always remember to think first before you say anything. Just those values that she always taught us growing up. She just reminded me that my purpose as a mother was going to be for my children. I wanted to share a couple of pictures. I rarely ever share some of my personal info when I do some of these presentations, but I thought this would be a great opportunity, only because it's celebration of Women History Month. And there's so much that we celebrate for our women in our lives, our mother, our grandmothers, our aunts, our sisters, our daughters. They hold that sacredness within our communities, leadership and resiliency, and just a lot of that. So right here, the first picture up on top is when I was in preschool, and my mother was actually my first teacher. She was a pre-Head Start teacher, so she was my first teacher. And then I have my family there, my partner and our children, and that was at Camimula's preschool promotion. And then I have the next one where we're in Window Rock, Arizona, with my children. And this is when I passed the Navajo Nation bar exam, and I was able to practice in my tribal courts. This was when I got sworn in, and my children came with me. And then the picture to the right would be my grandparents, my grandmother and my grandfather when they were younger. Down below, I have my daughter, who right now has been following me throughout this whole advocacy, teaching her a lot about what's going on, and just seeing that. And she's been asking a lot of questions, and just, something that I've seen with my mother as well, as you see there. When I graduated from UNM, I have a picture with her there. Just always inspiring, always, just supportive. And then right in the middle, there's my grandmother with my mother as well when they were young. And then my beautiful mother when she was in college. And then down to the lower right is my grandmother, who was pretty big in our community as well, just advocating and going to chapter meetings, and just being part of the community for our children. So I wanted to kind of just give you a backstory before I get into the case itself. Was that growing up in our traditional ways and values of how we value our children is that we view them as sacred, and also the importance of our roles as parents, as grandparents and guardians, is that the importance of our guidance for our children to have a good life as they become adults, the preparation. And part of that preparation, of course, is our education system. So me going back with my my roots of where I came from, my traditional teachings from my grandmother and my mother, just the importance of how we hold our children sacred had really inspired and motivated me when we started this. At the time, my mother was still here with us. So that's really what it is, the background story of my values and what my role is and what I was taught as what it means to be a mother and for our children. So going forward, when we started the case, this case is rooted in two basic strengths of our state, which is our children, and in our educational expertise and knowledge. And of course, all of you here present today hold that expertise and knowledge in one way or another, and different aspect. And when we come together and collaborate and come into community, there's so much power and there's so much energy that comes about where we continue to advocate for our children. And the education inequities experienced by our children would be that public schools don't receive fair and full funding. And I think we all know that. Schools don't validate, embrace, or uplift student cultures, identity, and experiences. And that's one of the main priorities, especially for me coming from a marginalized group, Native American, as a Dene, growing up. You know, my background, my culture, and it's still like that today in our school system, is that they're not acknowledged, they're not included. And then also the third one is the state is not providing educational programs and opportunities for a student to succeed. And that was very in-depth in this lawsuit when the order came out with from the late Judge Singleton. And the students facing deepest inequities would be our Native American students, our English language learners, our students with disability, economically disadvantaged students, low-income family students. Those are the four groups that this case is about and who we fought for through the lawsuit. And then, of course, all students across the state included. And I think we all know that we have a constitution, a New Mexico Constitution, which requires the state to provide a sufficient public education. That means that all students have a right to be ready for college or career, but the state hasn't done what it's required to do. So I, along with other parents and school district, we sued the state of New Mexico to improve our education, not only for my own children, but for all students. And today I continue to advocate across the state to have everyone to understand what the case is about and what we can do to continue this. It's been since 2018 when the ruling came about, and we're in 2025. In addition, equity is at the center of our state laws, especially for New Mexico. We're so unique, we're so diverse, and there's so much beauty within everybody here within our state. We have some of the strongest laws in the country when it comes to educating our diverse students, such as one, the Indian Education Act, our Public School Act, our Hispanic Education Act, Bilingual Multicultural Education Act, and the most recent one, the Black Education Act. We also have federal laws such as IDEA and Title I. However, the court found that the state hasn't met its own standards under these laws. Although we have these laws, there's so much that needs to be done. A multicultural education is key, is one that is very important in this lawsuit. Of course, no education system can be sufficient for the education of all children unless it's founded on the sound principle that every child can learn and succeed. And I think that's where a lot of our students here in our Native American communities struggle with, is that inclusion. They're just I always tell my children, no matter where you go, no matter where what it is, you know, especially my two oldest sons, now they're adults, young adults, they're in college, and just go after what you want, you know, your interests, what you want to do, but don't ever let anybody tell you otherwise, that you cannot or that you are not able to get where you want to get to, that you can succeed, but it has to be you. And that was one of our other teachings growing up from my grandparents, was a term that they use, that means, you know, it's up to you in everything that you do. We're here to support, we're here to teach you, but when it really comes down to it, it's really up to you. And the key to student success in New Mexico, of course, is the multicultural education, which attracts and retains qualified and diverse teachers to teach New Mexico's multicultural student populations. And then also many measures of a sufficient education. I've always been asked this question when I do presentation. Can you explain what you mean by sufficient education? And I think there's so much into that sufficient education term that includes a holistic approach of everything. Some that we have here is our public school code, and then the laws that I just mentioned earlier, our department's PED, some federal law, and then outcomes of it. So going back to the case, we filed in 2014. That was 11 years ago. And we have 5 family plaintiffs, 6 school districts on the Yazzie side. And then on the Martinez sides, we have 12 family plaintiffs. So what happened is the Yazzie plaintiffs, we initially filed in here in McKinley County. And then a similar suit came about in Santa Fe County, and we decided to consolidate those 2 cases together, which became the Yazzie Martinez or Martinez Yazzie case. And the defendants were the state of New Mexico, the PED, and the Secretary of Education. And our legal claim is that the state had violated the state constitution by not providing our children with a sufficient education. And then in 2018, after 2 months of trial in 2017 and 2018, the judge ruled in our favor of our New Mexico students and families. And the judge's decision was pretty much that the state constitution requires the state to provide every student with the opportunity to obtain an education that allows them to become prepared for career or college, which includes multicultural framework, effective programs and services, teachers, funding, and accountability. Some excerpts from the judge's findings in regards to Native students is state must fully comply with the IEA, the Indian Education Act, and sufficient funding to districts to implement that act, failing to provide technical assistance to our districts. And then only 2% of all teachers in New Mexico are Native American. And we've been fighting for that since the ruling. And now I think we're at 3%. We're recruiting and encouraging more Native American teachers, especially in regards to culture and language. Teachers do not have access to culturally relevant training. And I think that's a big issue here in my community with our school district. We have great teachers that come in from out of state, out of country, but they're not familiar with our culture. They're not familiar with our communities. And I think that's very important to have those trainings for inclusion, and also failing to provide curriculum and materials that are culturally relevant and responsive. And then funding for our CLR programs and services, counselors, social workers, etc., transportation. There's so much that's included in this lawsuit. A couple of updates. As I mentioned earlier, we filed in 2014, we won in 2018. And then right after that, the state had asked the court to dismiss the case, stating that they are doing what they need to do and they don't need a court order to tell them what to do, which was not granted. And then we filed a motion which was denied. We filed a motion for compliance. At that time, it was dismissed, which when we're able to refile, and which we did. And then the Martinez side of the case, they filed for what they call a discovery, where we asked the state to provide their plan and what they've done so far since the court ruling, what's been happening, a lot of that. So that really took a process. And I think that discovery period just had ended last year in 2024. At the time, 2021 came about, the pandemic happened, and then that's when a lot of these inequities came about within our school districts for our children. There was no remote learning, there was no access to broadband, to Wi-Fi, internet. There's not enough technology that our children could utilize, books, just so much. And I think a lot to do, a lot of that was also with just a lot of our children going through, families that are passing away from the pandemic, and just a lot of that. So there was no support. In 2022, so anyhow, that technology motion for technology was granted. We were able to get some students technology, broadband access, and just to have each school district come up with plans on how to help their students. Discovery took place from 2020 to 2022. Legal team went through everything up till just about last year. Some of you may have recalled that PED had released a draft action plan, which really went nowhere. And then in 2023, Attorney General announced intention to represent the state, desired to collaborate with us. Just recently, in September of 2024, we filed a joint motion with the Yazzie the Martinez team of non-compliance motion and request for a remedial action plan. And both parties had gone back and forth. We filed a motion, the state filed a response, and then we filed a reply brief just last month. So now we have a hearing scheduled for April 29th at 9 a.m. The public is invited. You're not able to speak, but you are able to listen. It's going to be a virtual hearing, and there's a code there. If you go to Google Meet code, you just put in that code and you'll be able to come up on the court system and view the hearing. I'll come back to that, but if you want to jot down the code if you're interested in that hearing. So the recent motion for non-compliance request for remedial action, which we filed back in September of 2024, it was a joint motion by Yazzie and Martinez, and the New Mexico Attorney General didn't oppose it. He said, I'll work with you guys. I'll work with you and, try to make progress on this. And we showed evidence of the state's non-compliance, the student outcomes, deficiencies within the PED. We see that with the secretary or the education secretary. Native American students, ELL students, students with disabilities, students with low-income household are still highly affected. Early childhood education, extended learning time, reading, literacy, class size, counselors, social workers, also our teacher workforce. Diversity, insufficient funding and support for training and PD. The remedy that we're requesting from this is that we're asking the court to order the development of a 5-year remedial action plan. The case was ruled on in 2018 and we're in 2025. That is about 6-7 years ago. And what we're asking is that this be led by the LESC staff with direct involvement, cooperation, assistance, and input from stakeholders such as yourselves, our students, our parents, our guardians, our educators, the community, our tribal leaders, just everybody that wants to make a better education for our students, state agencies, school districts, education experts, advocates, tribal consultation and collaboration. And in this plan, we're requiring that there be 9 components necessary to implement the court's order. And those 9 components are there. One of the very critical, I think, right now is the special education program. So I'll keep that there for a while just so that you can see the list. And for each component, we required a plan to include specific actions that the state must implement. The actor or agency responsible for overseeing that implementation and analysis of the additional funding needed to complete each action, and objective measures to evaluate progress of implementation, stated separately for each year for the next 5 years. And right now we have the legislative advocacy happening within our legislative sessions. There has been several bills that have been introduced, are still going through. And Transform Education New Mexico has been dealing a lot with that, and my legal team from New Mexico Law Center on Law and Poverty as well. And then community-driven solutions. So we have a Tribal Education Alliance, Transform Education New Mexico, a coalition that formed back in 2018 that prepared what they call the Yazzie Remedy platform. So if you go to Transform Education online, there's so much resources and so much information that are that you're able to download, research, and then also with our Tribal Remedy framework as well. So changes since the court ruling. We've received some increased funding, requirements for CRLR curriculum and instructional materials and new social studies standards. We've seen that. We have some teacher raises and equal pay for Native language, culture teachers. However, this still has yet a way to go. We still have not seen much has changed for our students at the heart of the lawsuit, in our rural communities and our EL students with disability. We still have teachers sorted, still over 600 plus. A lot of our classrooms still don't have bilingual teachers. Full day pre-K still not available. I think I've heard that some schools are incorporating some of that. Most schools still do not have enough funding for programs and services, no additional resources for students with disability, bilingual, multicultural programming. One in my area that's very critical is that we don't have enough social workers, counselors, literacy specialists, and lack of internet access and support for teachers, families during remote learning. And we still have some remote learning that happen in our school. And the legal team that's helped me and other parent families through this process in school district is the New Mexico Center on Law and Poverty. The role in their movement is education and engagement with communities, litigation, legal rights, and an impact, and then advocacy, policy change. So I always encourage parents to advocate for their students within their school districts, within the state level. Contact our leaders, our representatives. And, a lot of this that's going on with the bills being introduced. One is our Native regalia, the right for our Native children to wear who they represent, where they come to be proud. And then also funding. And our work continues. So we've been doing we've been planning for more community information sessions for 2025, but because of the legislative session right now, we're kind of holding off on that. And in court, the hearing is coming up on April 29th at 9 a.m. I will give you the code for the Google Meet if you are interested. And we're monitoring implementation efforts of the court's order. Advocacy efforts, we need a plan, sufficiency, equity, transparency, and accountability, and advocating again in the legislative priorities, which is happening right now. And I always encourage everyone to join the movement, ways you can get involved. You can attend our public comments and town halls. such as one that we're in right now. Very thankful to Eastern New Mexico University, the multicultural department, to hold these important discussions and to hold these important information sessions. And then also sign up for email lists with New Mexico Center on Law and Poverty, and then also follow us on social media. There's a page for New Mexico Poverty and Law, Transform Education in New Mexico. And then here are my legal warriors. I have my sister, Melissa Candelaria. She's Pablo, Elisa Deal, and my brother, Preston Sanchez, who's also Dene and Pablo. And also the two organizations that really put out a lot of resources, information, and has been doing so much advocacy efforts in the legislative session right now. Okay, so I see that they put the Google Meet code for the hearing in the chat, if you're interested. There was so much information and so much, even the court order itself. I have a booklet. Or a binder, actually. So the decision and order itself is this binder. And it touches up on so much stuff. I myself have to go back and refer to it because there's so much stuff that the judge had implemented. And right now we're still in it. A lot of parents have been involved, have been advocating, using their voice in our school districts. And we've been encouraging our students themselves as well to advocate and to understand and research what this case is all about. There's a book that came out also with the University of New Mexico called the Yazzie case. And Charisse, can I ask you to go ahead and put in the chat information on that book, which is very helpful for educators, our teachers, our students, kind of give them an insight on the Yazzie side, which focuses on our indigenous communities and education and all of that. So I also wanted to give you that information. And then let me see how we're doing on time here, 2:42. I think we end at 3. And like I said, there's a lot of information, so much going on. I just wanted to kind of introduce myself to you and who I am, where I come from, why I do this work, why it's so important to me. It's just my upbringing of my values of in Navajo is a kinship. It means kinship, but when you really dive deep into the word, it's so much more than just kinship relationship. Means this connection, just not with humans, but with the universe, nature, just on a holistic approach. You have to think about everything. And I always go back to when my mother told me, you know, this is not about you. This is going to be about your children, all children, and so much more after that. So I'm learning that, and I go back to a lot of the things that my mother taught me and told me when I was growing up. I'm coming to understand each time when I'm working on this. Growing up, I always thought, you know, they're just always lecturing me. They're always telling me, you know, don't do this, don't do that, you know. And now that I'm older and a mother myself, I've come to understand the importance of those teaching and values and why they taught me that. And the importance of that we need to treat everybody equally, no matter who they are, no matter where we come from. You know, that we all hold this unique knowledge of some sort, every one of us. And that's how we're all placed here, I think, in this world. Is to provide and to help each other to understand and come together for the sacredness of our children. So that's really what inspired me. And then my mother was a single parent, so I've seen her work hard day in, day out, coming home late, and just being out there in the community for our children. And there's times where I would wonder and ask her, like, you know, Mom, why can't I come home to you after school, like some of my peers have done? And at that time, I was being selfish because I wasn't thinking about her being a single parent, her having to work, not just to support us, but also to be part of the community and just be there for all children. So my inspiration is just my mother. I know it's Women's History Month, and a lot of that comes down to just, you know, her, and I acknowledge her, and I just have to remember that I'm doing this for the children. And I hope I gave you some insight of what the case is about, where we're at, where we're going, what's happening. Of my legal team usually will provide a more thorough explanation on the legal side of a lot of things. I come in more of my personal why I do this, and then just to kind of show you who I am and where I come from. So again, I just want to thank everybody. And I think we're at Q&A right now. If anybody has any questions, comments.
We have one here in the room. Yes.
Mrs. Yazzie, thank you for joining us and for sharing your story. It was wonderful. I know that we're about as far away from you and still be in New Mexico, but your message is just as loud here. And I remember the first time I read back in 2018, when Judge Singleton was burning up the newspapers talking about this case, and she quoted you saying, when you went to the school and said, why can't my son have an AP class in math? And they said, he's getting A's. What is it you want? And everybody that I was talking to was so outraged by that was the response you got. So if you can feel people at your back all the way from the east side of the state, please feel that we are there. And thank you so much for your story. I know there are legislators who want to help with this issue, and some of them are doing little tiny things, recognizing, for example, the anniversary of the Mescalero Nation, recognizing, I think Representative Lenti has tried to get money to go directly to tribal groups instead of into municipalities and wherever else it tends to go and die. But it's hard, you know, they don't have the network yet. They're building it. And I hope that you see some promise there, because I do think there are people who believe in this, and perhaps PED will have a change of heart and personnel, and things will be better. Anyway, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. And yes, I remember that when my son was actually in mid school at the time, when I was advocating to get him into advanced classes, just as his peers. He had some really great friends, good friends actually, that were in these AP classes, but he wasn't able to get into them. So we had a bit of struggle, but I'm just so proud of my oldest son, Xavier, because he graduated from high school with a high school diploma and an associate's degree from UNM. Through all the adversity, through all of that, I mean, it wasn't easy for him, and I had to be on top of him, also supporting and pushing him. And I know that was a lot, but just the outcome of it was just great. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. We have Maria in the comments. How do you see the current political and social climate impacting the case?
Politically, I think we have leaders that are very supportive in pushing this school suit. We have our tribal communities, our tribal leaders as well right now within our also with our legislative session. There's Senator Cindy Nava, who's really advocating to push a lot of these bills through. Representative Lente as well. Senator Pinto, oh gosh, there's so much, but I know that they're working hard. And then also Loretta with Transform Education New Mexico as well is pushing a lot of this, is tireless working there just, listening, advocating, supporting. And then social climate, I think, as long as we get a lot of this information out to our communities, there's still a lot of communities that are not familiar with this case. And parents are still not understanding their rights and what they can do on behalf of their children. So I think the more we provide this information and get this information out, encourage our parents, our communities, even down to students. I've come to have met a lot of great students who are just have so much great questions and have so much, they're so, I get choked up when they start to talk to me and ask me questions and just what they see and what they share with me. And they're just, they're just sacred. And that sacred word means so much in my language. So I know that, I'm hoping that we come to work together more, collaborate, even as high as higher education. I know that UNM has a recruiting for Native American teachers. And just, a lot of that implementation on how to help our students with a better education system. And I know that with the current situation with our nation right now, there's a lot of on the federal side, but this is more on the state side with our case. So we have a little bit of federal involvement, but not so much. So, but thank you. I know I'm going on and on.
Okay, next we have Rebecca Gossett. How can we help the most? I am a counselor and counselor educator.
Oh gosh. Well, first of all, I always tell our educator in our school system is that learn about our children, their background, where they come from. I've come to appreciate the differences. I know that we all have different perspective. We all have different opinions, but that's what is all about in Navajo. That term I use a lot. The reason why I use it a lot is because it's a more holistic approach in thinking about certain things. And the 4 basic things that my grandmother and my mother taught was to listen first, no response, no reaction, to listen first, and then to think about what's going on, and then from there, implement a plan, implement how you're going to help, how you're going to assist. And then the 4th is to live that. So those 4 things would be Nsaha case, thinking, Nahata, planning, the other one was Ina, is good to live it, and then the 4th one is Sehasin, is to reflect on it. What kind of change did you do? How did you help, our students? How do we, a lot of that. So just inclusion as well, including everybody, to welcome, to treat all of our children as our own. The way I treat my children is I have this opening just for them to approach me. I tell them, I reassure them they're valuable, they're smart, they're beautiful, they can do this. Just that. I think a lot of times our children need to hear that, especially those that come from different type of backgrounds and those that go through so much at home that sometimes we don't know because it's so different at school. So yeah, just that, I think. Thank you.
Next, we have John Petrone. As the federal executive branch actively pushes to eliminate the U.S. Department of Education and roll back DEI initiatives, how do you see these real-time efforts impacting New Mexico's ability to comply with the Yazzie Martinez ruling and provide an equitable education for at-risk students?
Thank you for that question. So I've been doing a lot of thinking of all this that's been going on. And I really think about as my ancestors, as a marginalized person, as a Native American person, we've dealt with this over and over. there's never been any changes in our favor, in our support with our federal government. We actually are controlled by the federal government, although we're a sovereign nation. I feel that with my ancestors, they've gone through this, they fought through this, and we can still fight through this today, even with what's going on. And with New Mexico, we're such a diverse state. We're such a beautiful state with different types of people that come together to collaborate. So although all this federal issues going on, I think as a state, if we come together and then going to our grassroots organizations within our community, just that support, and then working with our state themselves and just with PED, saying, yes, let's work together. Just as our Attorney General has stated that he will work with us to push this suit to have our students have an equitable, sufficient education. So I know that DEI right now is a big thing, and we've been really advocating for that diversity, equity, inclusion within our state. But I think right now it's falling upon our state leaders, our educators, our advocates within our state to come together. So I know that's not a straight answer, but something that I really think about is just that coming back to that term Navajo of being together as one. Thank you.
Next, we have Chantilly. I am graduating in the winter. I would love to help this work and be in it. When would I start, and are y'all taking volunteers? Or where would I start and are you taking volunteers?
Yeah, so I always encourage people to get involved in a lot of that. So we're trying to hold information sessions throughout the state, at different places. And because of the legislative session right now, that kind of halted, but we will resume. So if you can provide your information, I will pass that on to my legal team, and also just getting feedback from the community of how their school system is, what their children are going through, and had they seen any changes. That really helps our case as well. So yeah, if you can just provide your information to Charisse, and I will definitely get you going. Thank you.
Okay. Next we have Tracy Campbell. Do you have advice on how universities could work with the tribes to increase the number of Native American students in teacher education programs?
I think I don't always like to give advice. My grandmother used to say Navajo that unless you're an elder or unless you've gone through the life of your experiences, then you should give advices. So I still just see myself as somebody that's still learning and that's still figuring a lot of this out. Even as a mother, there's so many things that I'm learning from my children, from being small, and then now with my older two sons being in young adults and in college. I would say really create a program within your institution. I think a lot of times is the funding of how to recruit Native American teachers, how to assist them with their tuition, their fees, a lot of that is involved with that. And then also to reach out to our tribal members, our tribal communities as well, our tribal leaders, to implement a lot of that and to come together. And yeah, again, I'm sorry, I know that that's not a straight on advice, but it's just something that I was taught that, and I don't think I'm there yet, but I'd like to provide support and just information on the things that I know and the things that I've learned thus far. So thank you.
And you have some love from Cassandra in the chat. Anyone else have any other questions? No? Okay. No. Um, let's see. We'll just do one more question. So it says, if you could see one major reform implemented in the education system for Native students, what would it be and why?
I think a lot of that in my area on here on the western side of the state is that multicultural linguistic curriculum education implementation of a lot of that. Because our students are at school 8 to 10 hours a day. Some of our students ride buses a 1 hour one way and then another hour home. I remember getting on the bus as early as 6:30 to 7 in the morning, and my school didn't start till 8:15. And then I ended at 3, and I didn't get home about till like 5 by dinner time. So I think that although I was learning my language and a lot of that at home, I think we need a lot of that also incorporated in our school system is the multicultural aspect of this. And then also to reflect a lot of that in our curriculum. I remember taking a state test when I was in elementary, which showed like like things from the Pacific or on the eastern region, I wasn't familiar with, which I'm not going to be familiar with because I never been out that either way. So just a lot of that multicultural aspect of this from the court order, I think is very important and critical for our Native American students. And I always go back to inclusion, including them, acknowledging them, listening to them, honoring them, and not just our Native American children, all children from the state, because there's so many beautiful cultures and ethnicity and, just it's so interesting to learn from another person who's not from of your own. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming to our event for Women's History Month. Let's give Wilhelmina a round of applause. Thank you so much. I'm so sad that you weren't able to attend in person, but I'm glad you're able to do virtually. And thank you everyone for attending. Our next event for Women's History Month is the blood drive on March 21st from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Cub Bus Lane. And have a great rest of your day. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.